This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, and I'm your host, Kait Lamphere. I am joined this week by two trading card nerds who don't play the same games, Danny Martinez.
Hello.
And Nick White.
I've got that weird card flinging device from Yu-Gi-Oh! That's me.
That's the most important part.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I've got two very important questions this week. I'm legally mandated to ask these, and I'm going to remember for this episode for once. How are you, and how have comic books been? Let's start with you, Danny.
I have been doing very, very well. It's been a really cool week. I got to go to the theater a couple of times to watch very different movies. Maybe we'll talk more about that in the post-credit, but I did watch the Super Mario Galaxy film on April 1st, which was a wild experience to go to the movies on a Wednesday. And then seeing the theater packed full of families and kids and stuff. And the other movie I watched was The Drama. That's the A24 film with Zander and Robert Pattinson. Very different films. So
yeah.
But I had a great time with both.
Real quick question. How many times have you seen Project Hail Mary?
I saw it twice in theater.
Okay, only twice?
Definitely look. Yeah, only twice. I would go more, but I feel like I don't have the time. But I did check it out in IMAX and Dolby just to look at the difference.
Yeah.
And if you want more information on that, I do have a video on my channel.
Okay, let's pause the episode real quick. I've got to go hear more about this experience that Danny had. I still have to see it in IMAX yet.
Ooh, Kait. It's yeah. I mean, you've seen the film, so you know the visuals are insane. So just imagine that in a 70, whatever size screen it is. I love that I'm gesturing like all this. Like this is an audio podcast.
It's so
like,
big.
My hands are all over the place. So go check out that on Patreon where you can see the full video of me going nuts. I do. Comics themselves have been really cool. I normally don't plug my channel stuff out here, but I did make a video about like the problems that Marvel currently has. And people are enjoying it. It has a lot more views than my normal videos, so I would recommend you go check that out if you're a little unenthused about Marvel Comics and what they've been doing with their publishings and constant reboots and renumberings. I think I put a lot of words that kind of lean into that direction, but it comes out of a place of love for comics and love for Marvel Comics. So it's not like I'm not doing like a takedown video of like Marvel, like you might see on the internet. So hopefully you go check that out. But
I mean, rage sells, Danny. I'm glad to see we're learning that. And even if it is coming from a place of love, I am sure you know that nuance is a really alive and well feeling on the internet. So I'm sure. You know what? I've seen the video. I've watched it. God, that sounds like Trump. I've seen the video. When I repeat things like 3 times in a row really quick, I'm like, that's him. No, I full credit to Danny. He does like repeat about 7 times that he still loves Marvel Comics, just so everyone does get the sentiment. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting, Danny. Video essays I feel like are having a real moment the last 2 or 3 years on YouTube. So
yeah, we all have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts, and I feel like we've abandoned them for short form, like punchy content, and I don't think that that's sustainable. So hopefully we get back to more interesting stuff. We can probably discuss a lot more of that in the post credits as well. I will say, to show how much I love Marvel Comics, the comic book I read today is a Marvel comic. It is Death of the Silver Surfer from Marvel Comics. This is a 5-issue limited series by Greg Pak, with art by Sumit Kumar and Thiago Palma, colors by Frank Darmada, letters by Joe Sabino. I love Greg Pak's work. I've been reading his comic books for over 20 years, ever since I stumbled into Planet Hulk, and I was like, oh, this is neat. Like, is there more? And he's just been putting out whether it's with Marvel or DC or his own creator-owned comics. Greg Pak is not only a fantastic writer, but I would categorize him as a fantastic human being. If you follow him on socials, like all the work that he does, he's very involved with his community, not just the comic community, but just his own community of where he lives. So yeah, great guy. So I will read his comics until I can, until they're not published, I guess. But I don't think that's gonna be the case anytime soon because they're great. In this book, the Silver Surfer is dead. Long live the Silver Surfer. Norrin returns to a war-torn Earth carrying a burden of the power cosmic, but with a massive target on his back. Enemies are closing in, humanity fears him, and the question at the center of the story becomes clear. If the Silver Surfer falls, who will carry his light forward? We explore in this book a lot of things, including what drives the Silver Surfer. Is it like ego? Is it revenge? Is it compassion? Is it guilt from all those planets that he led to, Galactus to consume? And even with the power cosmic flowing through him, Norrin Rad is still just a being searching for connection, humanity. Even when humans don't trust him, and even when other beings don't trust him, there's a opening page where he stumbles into a warrior that is fallen. Well, he's not fallen, he's injured and he's about to die. But then that is juxtaposed with like the a beetle turned upside down that can't move, because to Norrin, like to the Silver Surfer, any being that's not like a god level being, it probably feels like an insect. So like this book is definitely not toying around with that idea. They're being very clear about it. So I really like that. But I love when he shows his humanity, and I just really enjoy what's happening here. Now, the tragedy of all this has always been that a world that he saves rarely accepts him, right? Because he is the harbinger of doom. Like even if you don't know much about the Silver Surfer, if you watch last year's Fantastic Four, when a Silver Surfer shows up, your planet is screwed. like that's kind of the premise of it. So it's always really scary when he shows up. But in this one, he makes a connection with one of the characters in here, and he just, you realize that Greg Pak wants to instill that feeling of hope into the character, and maybe he's able to do something for at least one person and keep them going forward. Um, the art by Kumar and Tiago Palma, they do a great job balancing two very different storytelling needs. On one hand, we have to like zoom out into this big cosmic scale adventure that is driven by energy and action and these big bombastic moments, because the power cosmic is a spectacle. And then on the other hand, the book never loses sight of like these smaller character moments. I will say they both have a very similar style, but I was able to tell when there was an art switch, even without looking at the credits, because they do have their own distinct features. And if you are on Patreon, you can check out the notes. I don't normally put panels on here, but I dropped a panel, one of the most powerful panels I think of the whole series, where the Silver Surfer is asking one of the individuals like, "Yeah, yesterday we all could have done more, but what will you do today?" And I was like, that just kind of resonated with me because there's a lot going on in the world, and we all feel like, I don't know if I'm doing enough, like, but maybe it's not about that. It's about like, what are we gonna do going forward? So, and I put this out on Blue Sky, and Greg Pak, he's like, this is actually this is the heart of the series. So yeah, on the day you're listening to this, if you're listening on the release date, the hardcover will be out at shops. Marvel doesn't usually do hardcovers for their collections, so I highly recommend you check this out. And I'm gonna be picking it up. But you can also read the single issues either on Marvel Unlimited or if you just pick them up. So yeah, I had a really good time with this. So I'm very glad to see that a creator that I followed for so long is still finds a way to, like, I don't know, surprise me and give me these moments of like, this is why I love to read comic books. So I highly recommend it.
I have not read a whole lot of Silver Surfer. Like I'm familiar with the character, but if I don't have any background knowledge otherwise, do you think that this could be just a jumping on point?
Yeah, I think it's a very self-contained story where like very quickly through the first few pages, they set up who the Silver Surfer is and what kind of power he wields. Obviously, there's a lot of layers to that, so the more you know about the character, the more some of the things are gonna resonate. But I think overall, like yeah, you can just kind of go into this as your, even if it's your first Silver Surfer book, like as long as you know who the character is, I think that works on a way for new readers.
Danny, when were these issues originally released? Because, and maybe this is just the big two: everything is new, everything is old, everyone is alive, and everyone is dead again. But I thought this whole Death of the Silver Surfer thing was a big deal years and years ago. Was I
I
thinking of
mean,
something
maybe it's not
else?
the first time he's died. Yeah, maybe he's died multiple times, but these came out in summer through fall of last year.
Okay,
So like from June to October.
gotcha.
It was
Yeah,
kind of
what
a
I'm
big deal
thinking
when
of
this was
is
announced.
much older. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been a few. I feel like Silver Surfer only comes back for standalone series. Like there was the Silver Surfer Black that Donny Cates and Trad Moore did not a
Yeah.
few, a bunch of years ago. But yeah,
And
this is relatively new. So I'm just very excited that it's getting a collection like this because I feel like I don't know, Marvel just doesn't do hardcovers anymore, and that's something I didn't cover on my video. So maybe I should have. That's
hmm.
probably a part of it. Like you got to make comics feel important. So this feels important because it's getting that hardcover treatment as well.
I mean, I think the bigger question would be, and I haven't been looking into this much recently. I'm sure you would have thoughts on it, but I remember how expensive Marvel paperback trades were. And so the idea of Marvel hardcover pricing seems even more wild. I don't know. They never, in the past, they never seemed to care as much about pricing their trades at an accessible level.
Yeah, this one's $22, which I feel it's pretty fair for 5 issues and a hardcover. Because
Yeah,
that's really
that's
just
fair.
they're charging you $2 extra, I think, for like the actual hardcover. If these are four, so yeah, I think they definitely adjusted. And I mean, Kate, you're probably more aware than any of us about the cost of publishing and paper and all that. So, so you know that it's got to be important for them to kind of go the extra mile.
Yeah, for sure. This has got to be a pretty good seller for them, or a good book, or maybe they think it'll win awards, or it has, or something, for sure.
Yeah, because with that price, I would have said, "Oh, that's what they're charging for the paperback edition, if not more." So that's shocking.
Yeah. I had a really exciting experience recently. I've been going to this book club every couple of weeks, and we usually talk about prose novels, but everybody in the book club was up for a comic book recommendation. So I recommended In by Will McPhail. And Mike and I have both talked about this on the show before, so I won't dig into it too much. But it's about this man who's trying to figure out how to like really have like genuine human connections and like all of his interactions with people. And the color in the book is used really effectively. Like it's black and white most of the time. But then if he feels like the interaction is genuine, then he kind of has these like kind of landscape looking color art in there. And you actually have no idea what those conversations are about. It's just the art and like the feeling, the emotion of that interaction. And that's been one of my favorite comic books that I've recommended to people since I read it 2-3 years ago. So I'm really excited that my book club liked this, and we had a longer conversation than usual about this comic. So
That must be one of the scariest, and I assume that this book club is either up to this point like exclusively prose or tends to skew heavily
yeah,
prose. Okay. Bringing a graphic novel, because I know other people who have done it, and I've suggested it once or twice as well, but it's like bringing a graphic novel in can be, God, I mean, I'm sure you have a very receptive group, but sometimes it's like, what's going on here? Or you realize that, like, for some of these people, if you screw this up, like, they won't do it again for a while.
yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah, I
Gosh.
definitely we read 5 or 6 novels before I was like, yes, this is the book to recommend to this group. Like, this is like a curated selection, but also
right. You're like,
comics.
I got one shot at this. Yeah.
So hopefully I'm still thinking about like, what will the next book that I suggest be based on this like success, you know? So.
Just straight to Watchmen. Why not? No.
Right. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, so but what I wanted to talk about in depth this week was another book that I keep discussing with people outside of the show, and that's The Photographer. This is a bande dessinée by I'm going to try these French names: Emmanuel Guibert, Didier Lefebvre, and Frédéric Lemercier. Hope I got all those right. This is a nonfiction story that follows the photographer Didier Lefebvre as he travels with Doctors Without Borders through Afghanistan and the countryside back in the mid-1980s. There was a lot happening back then. This is a really interesting comic book project. Like, it includes many, many photographs that Didier took during that trip. And a few of those photographs were published at the time, like 2 or 3, but he took thousands and thousands of them. And most of those photos haven't been seen for like 20 years. And then in the mid-2000s, Guibert, who was friends with Didier, suggested that he do the artwork and combine that with the photographs and create this book. And then they found Lemercier to color the artwork. So this is just like a really interesting like piece of art, like multimedia comic. The story itself is fairly slow at first. It follows Didier and this Doctors Without Borders group while they go from town to town offering medical treatment to people. There's a lot to look at on every single page because of the combination of artwork and photographs and text. So this took me like weeks to read because I didn't want to like fly through it, and I wanted to like take my time and really like appreciate every bit of it. This is during the Soviet-Afghan war, and so there's like a lot of bombing happening in the countryside. I didn't know a lot about that conflict, and I really still don't, because that's not really what the story is about fundamentally. But according to Wikipedia, this conflict contributed to like some of the larger conflicts that we all know about, like the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union, and up to 3 million Afghans died during this conflict that Didier was traveling through. And so this is not a light read. I really brought down the show.
This one is not for the book club. This one is not. Right. You're right. Guys, I got a follow-up book for you. You're not going to believe it.
This would be a hard one to talk about at a Starbucks. Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, geez. Oh.
Yeah. So there are photographs of like significant wounds. There's racism. There's sexism. There are stories about kids dying. So this is like not. This is not a light. This is not a light read. Yeah. Heads up. The dangers that Didier faced in pursuit of documenting this trip is just incredible. Like, there were bombings happening. They could hear them. They would run into areas that had been bombed. And so as the story went on, I was really thankful for the help of like the friendlier locals, and then the doctors themselves that had been there before on these trips. I was just so grateful for all of them and the way that they treated Didier. And then toward the end of the story is really when it becomes a difficult read. I got really frustrated with some of Didier's choices that put him in more danger than necessary. Like, he was surrounded with all of these people that wanted to keep him safe. And anyway, it made for a
sort
climax.
Of like valiant hero type of sorts, or is that...
No, just like choices. Like, I don't know if you travel a lot, but like, this man was on like a trip, you know. He was away from home. He was having all of these experiences that he hadn't had before. It did kind of get samey for him, you know, like traveling from town to town, and just like, you know, is this, you know, the trip that he wants to be on? Is this like the photographs that he wants to take? And as a person who travels, like I could understand his perspective, but at the same time, he was in a war zone. So
right. Yeah, interesting.
The repeat characters in this book, other than Didier, are mostly the doctors that he travels with. As I said, they're all like really helpful, observant, hardworking, and they would frequently like hike between towns multiple miles a day, and then they would get there and they would work on patients sometimes overnight. And I am just like, I have no idea when some of these people slept during the course of the story. And it's amazing. Like they must have had over 24-hour days sometimes after, like a 10-mile hike or something. And then I also appreciate how frequently the book checked in on the one woman in the story, Juliet, who was their trip leader and who had done that trip multiple times already. And she's clearly respected by everybody that the group meets, even when like the local women in Afghanistan didn't have public facing leadership roles or really weren't seen almost at all. And I felt like her perspective on the lives and the freedoms of Afghan women at the time was really needed in this story. I'm really glad that it was included by the creative team. At one point, she makes an observation that the burqas, like the full covering robes the women wear, like provided like they were necessary for like allowing women to move outside of their homes because they couldn't be seen. And that's not something that I'd ever considered with the full covering garb. And so just considering how few women this group sees along their journey, I thought that the inclusion of that conversation with Juliet was really necessary. And then there were a lot of small details. Like this almost felt like a anthology of stories like that were connected by this walking journey almost. And so there's a lot of people mentioned that the doctors treat. There's and then they just have to move on. Like they just have to treat the next person. And like they went through this surgery in the middle of the night, and then you just don't know what happened to that patient. And so at the end of the book, the creators had tried to contact anybody who was really relevant to the story and to see how they fared since then. And I really, really appreciated that epilogue with a check-in on all of these people. And sometimes the news was good, and sometimes it was bad, and sometimes they couldn't get a hold of them. But I'm really glad that was there. And then, like I mentioned, that this was like a series of connected stories. And in hindsight, I learned a lot about the different aspects of this group and the culture, like almost like it was building on top of the last scene. And I don't know if that was actually Didier's experience. He had a very good like learning experience, if that's what actually happened. But I thought that it was really well organized, because you'd learn like one thing about the local government or family dynamics, or what served as local doctors or food or managing the livestock. And then you would learn something else that built on that the next like scene. And then there's definitely like this climax toward the end of the book, and without all of those previous stories and all of that background information, my reaction to that would have been like completely different without the context of all of these other people that Didier had run into throughout the course of the story. Like if this was like the first experience that he had, it would have just completely changed my experience of the book. And I still have more to say about this. In the photographs themselves, like the landscape and the faces are just beautiful. Like the way that he captures emotions in his photographs are really incredible. Like especially when you have somebody who has accompanied a patient to see the doctors, like you can see the concern on their faces. And most of the time, like I mentioned that the women don't leave the house a lot in this story. So you don't see a lot of women. So for the most part, you're getting like dads concerned for their kids, or men concerned for their friends, and things like that. So just like the ways that this is captured on photography was amazing. And I feel like I say a lot about comics on this show, but this was a really great example of what comics can do with the medium of comics. Like this combination of illustrations and photographs worked so well for this story. And I don't think that this book would have worked if they weren't both there. Like you couldn't have a story about a photographer without photography. But then if you only had the photography, you wouldn't get the complete story. So just the way that they combined them and like organized the story and like what they included, it was so well thought out. And then like the fact that those pictures were 20 years old, like, oh my gosh, they were still able to like digitize them and include them, and you could see like where Didier had like marked on the film photographs way back when. And that was just a really interesting like process insight, like on the page as you read, and that was really cool. So obviously I read this book like a month ago and I'm still thinking about it and talking about it, and finally had a chance to talk about it on the show. So this one's going to stick with me for a long time.
How did a book like this come to be like the next thing you're reading, Kait?
Yeah. So I do a lot of different reading challenges throughout the year, and one of the reading challenges I've been working on is Storygraph's like Read the World challenge, and they have 10 different countries that you're supposed to read a book from every year, and one of them was Afghanistan. And because I do so many reading challenges, this is one of the challenges that I'm like, I will allow myself to read a comic book for this one and not have to like read usually a print book. There's not a lot of audiobooks for some of these countries sometimes. So I'm like, all right, this is fine to read as a comic. I'll cheat a little bit, I guess. And then especially because this was not like an Afghani author, I was like, this is cheating.
Now we find that there are rules.
Yeah,
yes.
I have a lot of internal rules about this challenge.
Self-imposed. I see.
Self-imposed rules, though, it feels like, right?
I'm not answering to anybody about this. Yeah.
Okay, this book seems huge. Is this book huge?
It was very long. It was mostly oversized in terms of like height and width. Yeah.
And in terms of the photographs, how were they integrating them into were they finding ways to integrate them into the layout of the panel work, or were you seeing dedicated pages or chapters or sections set aside for the photographs?
They were integrated on every page. Sometimes you'd get like one photograph in place of a panel, and then other times, a lot of the time actually, you'd get like a short reel of photographs, like as if you had like clipped out like film photography from cameras like in the late 80s or early 90s, if you might remember.
Right. And for some of you've never seen before. Yeah. That's interesting, because I think part of it, what I was like afraid of was, and I've seen this sparingly in comics, and this doesn't seem like the place, and I'm sure the two of you have probably seen this. Sometimes you'll see a photograph in the middle of a drawn panel. So it's like a drawn panel, and then they drop a photograph somewhere in the middle of it. That drives me absolutely nuts, and I hate it so much. So I'm glad to hear that's not the case.
Yeah, I read another book. I read another book a long time ago that I recommended repeatedly, called The Photographic Life of Graciela Iterbide. And the way that book was organized reminded me of the way that this book was organized, where like she herself was a photographer and they included her photography, but then her actual story, like moving through the world, that was illustrated.
I was going to say, yeah, I was looking at some of the previews, and I do see what you mean about the integration of the photographs. Also, the art reminds me a little bit of David Aja, from the Hawkeye book, right? Yeah, very interesting. Not a lot of details, but like everything that you kind of need is there. So I don't know if I would ever venture into a book like this, just because it definitely feels like it's really a challenge to for a lot of different things. But it's very cool though. It looks really, really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely allowed myself to take my time on this one. Like I think I started it right when I got it, and then I think it auto-renewed at least once with the library. So that tells you I was reading it for probably 6 or 7 weeks, like a little bit at a time.
Whew, that sounds like a lot, Kait. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I am ready to hear about what you read and bring this show back up, maybe.
Maybe. I think the subject matter will not be as dark, but I think my tone may lean into Danny's new rage bait phenomena. I'm kidding, Danny. So I read High Strangeness 3 through 5. The story is by Daniel Noah, who is perhaps best known as the co-founder of Spectrevision. This is a film production company, largely has to do with sort of underground kind of horror / weird sci-fi / fantasy. It was co-founded with another individual you've probably heard of named Elijah Wood, which is, I think, part of the reason this book got made. We'll get into that. The writing is by Daniel Noah, with co-writing credits for Christopher Cantwell for issue 3, Cecil Castellucci for issue 4, and Christian Ward for issue 5. Big names. Obviously, Cantwell did Out of Alcatraz. Castellucci recently worked a whole bunch on Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, and Christian Ward has done a million billion things, but I guess you could point to Odyssey if you wanted a big one. Art is by Valeria Berzo for issue 3. She worked on Hunt for the Skinwalker. Chloe Stowski for issue 4. Really new to the game. I think she had a credit on an Adventure Time one-shot. And Christian Ward did issue 5. And again, Christian Ward did a million billion great, wonderful-looking things. You can pick any of them. Not a problem. Colors by Francesco Segala and letters by Becca Carey. So some folks might remember that I discussed the first issue of this book ways back, I think in about October. And I said that I was really, really interested in this book, mainly because of Noah's conceit regarding this book. He did a bunch of interviews. You can Google a bunch of them. I think a lot of what I'm discussing comes from his Popverse interview, for anyone who wants to look that up. But he regarded his book as, quote, the first proper Fortean comic book series, which is to say a series built upon the premise of a unifying theory behind all paranormal phenomena, and one that would depict those various experiences as we know them to truly be, strange, beguiling, and without clear answers, unquote. Which, I mean, that's fascinating. Like, doing an anthology about weird supernatural stuff, whether it's aliens or cryptozoology or things like synchronicities, I'm already interested. I mean, I'm already reading Cruel Universe, which is basically doing that. So if you're going to offer me more, that's great. But then Noah shows up and he's basically like, hey, what if I have a theory that basically all supernatural phenomena can more or less be looped into one unifying idea? And I was like, okay, that's fascinating. I'm game. Like, I would love to hear what you've got. You're probably wondering if he pulled it off. I think if you asked Noah, he would probably tell you he did. But Noah also goes on to label himself as a clairscient. Again, that's like a combination of the words clairvoyant and omniscient. He says that this allows him to, quote, experience the emotions of people around me, sometimes overwhelmingly so. And it allows him to, quote, sometimes pick up feelings tethered to a place or an object, presumably as some sort of psychic residue from events of the past and sometimes of the future. You can make of that what you will. Okay. What's interesting is that a lot of this information comes from the essay of the 5th issue. Every issue in the series has an essay at the back, written or penned by some sort of expert in the field that issue concerns. And I think another struggle with this book is that basically Noah presents this journey as a personal journey. It's his own personal journey of going from being a skeptic about all supernatural phenomena to basically having some scary moments at that hotel from The Shining. And that set him on a series of questioning a whole bunch of these things. And then he goes through and sort of starts to explore some of these other things and go from being a skeptic to a believer. And so depending upon what you personally think about some of this stuff and the veracity of it, yeah, your mileage may vary with this book. But I mean, look, he covers UFOs, he covers Sasquatch, the idea of synchronicities, or coincidences, and sort of exploring, are they really coincidences? How do synchronicities work? All the way down to dimensional portals, and finally the idea of moving outside of space and time itself. Each topic gets its own issue, as something that Noah has experienced or encountered in one way or another. But what's kind of difficult is that he promises something of an interconnected narrative between all these issues, and I really feel that you mostly see this between issues 4 and 5, that being the time portal one, and then the outside of time and space one. And then it felt like 5 tried to tie together some linkage from the other 4 issues, and I really wasn't that convinced. Yeah, I was just really this idea of interconnectedness really didn't seem to be there. And then on top of that, it really felt like he claims it was a personal journey, but he's not in the book, and he's not narrating the book, and there's a fictional analog character of him in the book as a substitute for himself. It really feels like these are 4 or 5 issues surrounding topics that he encountered or investigated, but it doesn't really follow his journey per se. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about him. So I will take questions at this point before I go on, because I realize I'm throwing a lot out there about this book.
Yeah, so this sounds like it's an anthology of stories up until that point. Is that right?
It sort of is, and it isn't an anthology. I think that's what's kind of weird. And I think what's kind of the tragedy for me is that if you remove the 5th issue and you come into this book without any knowledge, without reading any of the interviews I did, or seeing some of the promotional videos and content like I did, I think this comes off as a much more solid project. I think it comes off as a much more coherent or cohesive work. I think the 5th issue, the attempt to have this theory and the idea that this is some personal journey, doesn't really click, at least for me.
I did notice I was looking at my favorite website, League of Comic Geeks, and I noticed that the average rating dropped, like as you went through the issues, like with 5, and it's not like a big drop. Everything's around a 3, like 3.3 is the lowest average rating for the 5th issue. So maybe I can see now. Nick, do you think this would, like, did you read this month by month, or were you reading this like in chunks? I know it's only 5.
Yeah. So I read it in chunks. I read, I think, 1 and 2 together, and then I read 3, 4, 5 together. I do think if you read it all consecutively, there might be some interconnectedness that I missed. But I really don't think so. And I, even as I was doing my write-up to discuss on the show, I went back and tried to see if there were if I could pick up some of these pieces that I was concerned maybe I had missed. But I think really the thing is, like, if this is indicative of like a personal journey for Noah and he finds meaning in it and it's meaningful to him, then I guess that's great. If this does something for him, that's wonderful. But whether or not it does something for me, I think that it's a completely different topic. I think that his theory is a little weird and I don't really follow it. And I think also for me, I wasn't really sure going into this work if this was, if he was really a true believer in all of these things or not. And also if this like unifying theory of his was like not unlike someone just writing a novel, like someone has a fun unifying idea behind these things, but doesn't really truly believe in it, right? Like it's just something they cooked up, but it's not something they truly believe. And clearly for Noah, this is something that, you know, he really, you know, puts stock in, I guess. And I think the tragedy here, like I said, is that there's really quality work being done here. There's really solid creators contributing. I think some of the issues here are fantastic. Christian Ward doing a story that takes place outside of space and time. He might be the most perfect person for how fucking insane and weird and bizarre and just, you know, the ability to depict a world that exists outside of you know, time and space and dimensions, and then render it on a two-dimensional piece of paper. He's the guy you want. It's stunning. It's crazy. It's beautiful. I don't understand the issue at all. You've got other great contributions here. Chloe Stowski, who drew the 4th issue, really should be getting more work and should become a household name after just a really, really, really solid job on the 4th issue. And Christopher Cantwell, basically they said, hey, do you more or less want to depict the setting of Halt and Catch Fire again, but in comic book form? And I guess he said yes, because he does that as sort of this, you know, he writes an issue about this edgy underground early 80s tech startup company that's grinding it out and sleeping in the office, and there's like 4 of them just, you know, their eyes just burning as they stare at this old computer screen for hours and hours, day after day after day, trying to make this this computer program that basically you can inject into any other computer and the computer will like fix itself from a hardware perspective. It's crazy. It's wild. It's very Halt and Catch Fire. He was the perfect guy to write the issue. And the other difficulty here is I would recommend this book to people. I know people won't believe that, but I would, just because I'm always more interested to talk about 7s and 8s than I am talking about 10s, because I think it's always interesting to talk about what are the missteps or whatever that kept a 7 from being a 10. But the price of admission on this book is just so high. These are $8 issues. Wow. And you're not going to save money on the trade because they've already said the trade is $40.
Wow. So, who is this from? What publisher?
This is from Oni, which, to their credit, I want to say this, and I can't say this enough. Oni, for me, has absolutely been nailing it this year. I feel like in terms of indie publishers that are absolutely just knocking it out of the park every single time lately. Whether it's the book I can't think of now, the name, it's like something of the underground. It's with the guy who, oh God, this is going to bother me. It's the artist Nick Leonardi who did Pink Lemonade. It's the guy who did Pink Lemonade. You can look that up. I don't remember. But they've just been nailing it. So yeah, overall, honestly, check it out, because I know that sounds, I'm serious. Check it out. I want to see what other people think about this book. I want to hear other people's experiences. I will also disclose, I did not read all of the essays in the back comprehensively. Once I found out that the author was not the one writing them, I was like, okay, like I'll skim these, but like, do I want to read 14 pages on Bigfoot? Not today, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. It sounds like this maybe is a library borrow.
That's at least $2 there, Mick.
Oh, right. So the issues are like 40 to 42 pages. So there's some justification for a price markup, but
I know, $8,
but not $8. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're starting to run out of tape for the episode. So how about if we move on to what's on the top of your pile? Nick, you good going back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this one is at least a little bit more straightforward, but we are going to continue with the topic of celebrity or celebrity adjacent books. I could plug Twilight Zone 6, which is by Nicole Go, friend of the show.
Yeah.
But that book does not need any help from me. It will do great. It will be fine. Not that Post Malone needs my help either, which I'm sure is where Danny was going.
That's exactly, yeah.
I want to talk about Post Malone's Big Rig Volume 1 from Vault Comics. This is written by Post Malone and Adrian Wassel, who is the co-founder and also the editor-in-chief of Vault. Art by Nathan Gooden, perhaps best known for his work on Barbaric, also from Vault. And colors by Dershing Helmer and letters by Jim Campbell. I think we all know how I normally feel when I find a comic written by, I don't know, J.J. Abrams' son or the Mother of Dragons. There's that time Paul Reiser and his son decided that their father-son bonding was going to be getting together and writing an Aliens book. There's the time Dark Horse let the guitarist of Rage Against the Machine put out like his 12 or 13 issue series Orchid. Like whether you like the person or whether you think the book is going to be good, there's always a level of apprehension with books like this. And it could be bearable, but most likely it's an inoffensive aggregation of wood pulp, some vanity project, or just generally bad.
Do you know what it's going to be about?
Yes, I do know what this is going to be about. Let me tell you. So here's the solicit, okay? They prayed for a miracle. They got 25 tons and 18 wheels of holy weapon. That's in all caps. Boy. The Dark Ages. Demon hordes plague Europe as hell invades Earth. The Six Petals, a secret sect of the Knights Templar, pray for a holy weapon to drive back the scourge. What crashes to Earth instead is the Rig, a fully loaded tractor trailer. In the aftermath of its arrival, the only man left standing is an enigmatic former priest. He will become Trucker. Not the Trucker. He will become Trucker. That's it. I'm not reading this wrong. I reread the solicit several times and literally went to a different website to make sure I had this correct. He will become Trucker. Okay? That's Zander, I know people aren't going to like this. That's the title of this episode. He will become Trucker. Okay? He will become Trucker and lead the fight against hell with 25 tons and 18 wheels of demon-slaying machine. Okay? They asked Posty, to, that's what they call him. I'm friends with him. They asked Posty to summarize the book, and apparently he also just read the solicit too, because he says, Big Rig is a crazy comic about 3 unlikely heroes battling wicked demons in medieval times using a massive 18-wheeler truck, and it's pretty fucking awesome, unquote. That said, look, the dude has managed to wrangle pull quotes from the likes of, here we go, Michael Bay, Simon Spurrier, Publishers Weekly, and the author of Dungeon Crawler Carl, say that 5 times fast, and Daniel Warren Johnson, who said, quote unquote, he wishes he thought of it. Okay. Look, I've looked at maybe 10 to 15 pages of preview art. I'm wondering if the fact that most of it is uncolored was a financial or deadline driven decision, or if it's an aesthetic one. But look, the sheer stupidity of this book draws me in. Okay? Like, it's weird to see this at Vault. This book probably, if you said this book is coming out of, say, AWA, I would be like, yes, of course it is. Of course it is. Vault is an interesting choice.
Yeah. And you said this is volume 1 already. Like, this is already available in trade?
So I don't think it came out as individual issues. I believe it's only coming out as a trade, and that trade is dropping.
It came
Did
out
it come out as individual?
I have all of them.
Oh, you have them? Oh my god!
Did you like it?
I haven't read it. I picked it up because every one of my favorite artists did a cover. Also, Post Malone has big ties to Texas, so I'm gonna pick this up, and I'm gonna go to my nearest Raising Cane's that is a Post Malone franchise, and I'll be reading it waiting for the Michael Bay adaptation of the movie that they announced at New York Comic Con. I'm all in on Big Rig. So Trucker, we're coming for you 2027. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, look, this book looks dumb as fuck. Okay, I'll definitely be. Look, I'm sorry. Like, this is so stupid. Maybe this is like a money laundering project for Posty. I don't know. Maybe, but
I don't
otherwise,
know.
I think that's what the Raising Cane's franchises are for, Nick.
Oh,
we learned from Breaking Bad the best way to launder money is through a chicken franchise.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So. That's true.
Big Rig does sound so absurd that I'm in for at least an issue. Yeah.
they've definitely, it feels like somebody borrowed a page from Book's Roadmap to Success from Berserker, because like you've got a publisher that's not typically known for shoveling slop involved. The editor-in-chief of the publisher, the editor-in-chief of the the firm is co-writing the book. The artist is pretty well proven. Like, they've checked at least a couple of the boxes where I would go, this is the real red flag. Like, there aren't massive red flags unless you consider the actual subject matter of the book. But yeah, I'm so dumb. Sign me up. At least to his credit, Posty does have a little geek cred. He obviously has a very expensive magic habit. I'm sure most people know at this point. He did buy the One Ring card, the one of one ring card. Only one exists. Wow. He paid $2 million for it.
Wow.
So
I'm learning so much about Post Malone today.
And he also has his own Oreo. Did you know that? He does.
No. Okay.
Guys, I'm not even a Posty fan, but there you go. There you go. Something to think about, everyone.
All right. I am also planning to read something that I think is kind of absurd, which is One Piece. This is Renee's
you
pick.
and Paul can coordinate on this, because I know, I'm sure he's joking, but he has discussed it.
We'll get him on for like one chapter. Yeah. So this was Renee's pick for the 2026 reading challenge that's available on Goodreads, Storygraph, Discord, if you want to join that conversation. I've been meaning to check this out for a while, and I ended up with a copy thanks to Renee. One Piece is a little over the top for me, but it comes so highly recommended by Mike and Renee that I have to give it a shot. Otherwise, I have to leave the show, right? This has been talked about on the show a lot, so I'm sure that you can find other episodes where people go in more in depth. But a quick summary, if you have not heard of One Piece, it's about a kid who wants to be king of the pirates. He eats a gum fruit, which lets him be super stretchy and immune to physical harm. He's also super optimistic and joyful, even in the face of like deadly threats, which happen pretty quickly in the book. And he's also looking for the One Piece, which is a treasure hidden by a previous great pirate that a whole bunch of other people are going after. And my hope here is that I hope that they find the One Piece by the end of the volume 1 that I plan to read. I mean, they couldn't possibly make 1,000 chapters or anything of One Piece, right?
Now, for a lot of people recently, Kate, the entry point into One Piece has been the live action Netflix show. Have you seen it, or do you plan to see it?
I watched about 10 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, this is too much. This is too absurd. But once I read volume 1, I do intend to go back and actually watch the whole show, because Renee wants to talk to me about it. And so I have to see it.
Maybe we need a Patreon exclusive. Kate and Paul watch the One Piece show.
Yeah.
And talk about it. I think we might have something there.
Yep.
Okay.
Danny, what's on the top of your pile?
Oh, man, I don't know if I can top Post Malone and One Piece. I'll try.
Okay.
I do also want to give a shout out to Pumpkin Heads from our friends Nicole Go and Dave Baker. That's also coming out this week. But that's not my pick, because I've already read that. Thanks to them for having us on. Go check out our episode. We had a great conversation. That really was very catered to Paul, with Twin Peaks, punk bands, and Superman talk.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. What I'm gonna read is you know how indie comics have been kind of blowing up really weirdly for the like in the speculator market. I think this is the one that's gonna blow up this week, and I was excited for this before even that happened. This is Neighborhood Watch #1 from Boom Studios, written by Sarah Gailey with art by Haining, colors by Rebecca Nalty, letters by Jody Troutman. In this book, we meet Jill Hewitt, a community leader and wife of a respected police officer who has turned up with a gunshot wound in a tunnel connecting the Will Haven gated community with the neighboring Open Arms Collective. Now, the VP of the HOA and the kitchen steward of the collective have stumbled upon her body at the exact same time, instantly casting blame across the divide. Forced into an uneasy alliance to discover the truth, they'll need to work together to uncover secrets both communities hold, to figure out who is responsible for this crime and what they could possibly gain from it. What was Jill doing in the tunnel? We don't know any of that stuff. So this book to me has pretty much everything. A fun mystery, art by an incredible artist, Haining. If you haven't checked out their stuff, go read DC's Spirit World. Also, the thing that everyone wants the most, homeowners associations. We don't talk about them enough, and I feel like it's
dude,
time
HOAs rule.
But yeah, we've talked about Gailey's work on the show before, like things like Eat the Rich, Know Your Station. I think they're always entertaining, and they always have something to say. So comics can really do everything. So yeah, I'm very excited about this one. And like I said, this is Danny's Monday night pick of the week, the lock for the week. So if you're investing in comics and you want to quickly flip your $5 into $100, Neighborhood Watch is the one to do. Now I need Zander to put in a disclaimer, like in a very quick voice, like, we're not responsible for any losses of money or anything like that.
Gambling is only allowable in these 8 states, and then Zander just hit us with like the FanDuel commercial, and
yeah, check your local laws for that. But yeah, no, I'm very excited for this. I funny enough, I do have the preview of this, but I had not gotten a chance to read it, so I figured let me put it on the top of the pile, and that means that I'm probably reading it right after we're done recording.
Awesome, that sounds really good. You guys have definitely given me some things to try to check out. For the people who are subscribed to us on Patreon, I think we're going to have a little bit of a post-credits episode this time. And if you're not on Patreon, give us a follow. Thanks to everybody who is on the show this week. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to Danny. Thanks for Zach for proof listening. Thanks to Zander for editing, as always. And thanks to Mike for the show existing. And until next time, comics are good, and so are you.